What is up, everyone? It's another week of Wakanda Whiskey and Blerddom. I'm your host, Paul. With me, as always, is my partner, Marc.
What's going on?
It's been a minute, man.
Yeah, last week was Morehouse or Spellhouse homecoming here in Atlanta. For those who don't know, I went to Morehouse for undergrad, and it was our homecoming. I don't know who we played. I know that we lost because we're like 0-8, but it's all about the tailgate when it comes to HBCU home games. It's not about the game; it's about the tailgate. I haven't been to the actual game in like 20 years. And I'm sure everybody knows who Angelina Jolie is. Angelina Jolie, the great actress. She's got a daughter who's now a freshwoman at Spelman. And
Right.
Angelina Jolie, the Academy Award winning or nominated actress, was on the yard, walking around, just having a good time. So yeah, it was fun, man. It was a real good time.
Did she step on a set?
She was out there looking very casual. I don't know if she was uncomfortable being around all those colored folk, but yeah, she was out there.
That's well, you live long enough, you see certain things.
Yeah. We also had here's what
Shout out to the Lords of the Long Box.
okay.
I'll take
Nice.
a Wakanda and Whiskey on the Rocks barkeep. What are we drinking?
As you know, I'm always drinking the same thing for the past couple of months. Wolf Moon, if you are into bourbon, I'm going to highly recommend and suggest this one. It's by Jason Aldean, the country singer. You should
Yeah.
be able to find this for less than $30, and I'm telling you, this is some good drinking right here.
I tried to find that at the store tonight. I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But I live in Florida. There's nothing good out here. I just got I couldn't find anything good. I was in a hurry because I was trying to make it here for this. So I just picked up some Glenlivet Caribbean Cask.
I've never had that one before. I haven't had Glenlivet in a while, actually.
Yeah, it's not one of my favorite scotches, but
Yeah.
it was on sale. I needed something to drink. Salute.
Makes sense. Oh, but what I was getting ready to say a second ago is for those who don't know, it's election season. So hopefully everybody is registered to vote. Hopefully you take voting seriously, especially if you're a black person in America. Far too many of us died and had to fight for us to have that right. And I say that because here in Georgia, where I am, we've got 5 candidates for statewide office, which I think is probably a record here in Georgia. Of that 5, if you want to count Herschel Walker, I mean, technically he's black, so I don't necessarily count him. But
Is he though?
is he? But yeah, Herschel Walker is one. Stacey Abrams, who's running for the governorship, she's
More
2.
power to Stacey Abrams.
Stacey
She saved
Abrams.
the Democratic Party.
Yep, she's running for governor. Alicia Thomas Morgan, who's running for Secretary of Education. William Bodie, who is running for Labor Commissioner. That's 4 plus Herschel.
Yeah.
Of that 5, and I don't really count Herschel, but of the 4 Democratic contenders for statewide office, 3 of them went to school. Oh, and Raphael Warnock. I apologize. Raphael Warnock is running for the Senate. So of that 4, Stacey Abrams, Alicia, Raphael Warnock, and William Bodie, of that 4 on the Democratic side, 3 of them went to school in the AUC where I went. Raphael Warnock, who's the current senator running against Herschel Walker, he went to Morehouse. Stacey Abrams and Alicia Thomas Morgan, both of them went to Spelman. So shout out to the HBCUs out there. Hopefully everybody's registered. Get out and vote. Voting is very, very, very important.
And that concludes our public service announcement to the good people, all of you. Get out and vote so that we can do what we still do and not have that right taken away from us.
So we can still preserve our democracy.
That too. So, as you know, this is Wakanda Whiskey and Blerddom. So we're going to start off with our Wakanda spin.
Keep on back! Keep on back! Keep on back! Keep on back!
As we all know, a little movie's coming out called Wakanda Forever, aka Black Panther 2, aka Recast T'Challa. It is no secret how Marc and I feel about this film. Yep. What up, TiVo? Thank you for being in the building. What we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk about what would we like to see in an ideal world. I mean, it's pretty clearly evident they're going to kill off T'Challa. I'm not going to belabor the point as to how we feel about it. It's well documented. Check out our videos on YouTube. But moving forward, if Mark and I were producers and directors, what have you, Marvel people, what are some things that we would have liked to have seen? And I wanted to talk about a couple of characters from the comic books, because with the Black Comic Lords, everything's always going to be focused on the comic books. There are a couple of Marvel characters that are from Black Panther comics that have sort of disappeared over the years, disappeared on the wayside, and they're significant characters. And I was thinking about this as I was reading the latest run of Black Panther written by John Ridley, this volume 8, which both Mark and I agree is trash.
That book sucks. Fire John Ridley.
Absolute trash. He's a great writer, just again,
not on this book.
Not on this book. How could this book be made better? So the main storyline of that, I'm not going to get into it because it's, quite frankly, doesn't make a lot of sense. But there's a big bad who's behind the attacks on Wakanda, framing T'Challa, etc., making his life basically hell. Who's the big bad? The obvious choice would be White Wolf, because, you know, someone who's familiar with Wakanda, familiar with Tutsi Zoraze, familiar with their tactics. And, you know, he's causing up a stir right now in the Captain America Symbol of Truth book, right?
Let me tell people who White Wolf is real quick. If you are not a comic book reader, the White Wolf is the adopted brother of T'Challa. Basically, he was a kid who was abandoned, for lack of a better term. I think it was a
Tarzan. It was a Tarzan storyline.
Right. He was abandoned in Wakanda, taken in by the King T'Chaka, raised alongside T'Challa and eventually Shuri as their brother. Well, the White Wolf, what's his real name?
Hunter.
Hunter has been kind of absent from the comics for quite some time, but he was ingrained into the Wakandan royal family, knows everything about Wakanda as a nation, their secrets, everything. And as Paul said, he's been making an appearance and making a lot of noise over there in the Sam Wilson Captain America book, Symbol of Truth. Symbol of Truth, right?
I think it's Symbol of Truth.
Symbol of Truth. And so, as Paul was just saying, the obvious person to be causing T'Challa the trouble that he's facing in Ridley's book, which is trash, would be the White Wolf. But Paul has another potential theory.
Well, you know, there's a couple other characters that also Wakandans, also have beef with T'Challa, also familiar with Wakanda's inner workings and security measures, that would be more interesting takes for Ridley to take. We're going to talk first about what's cracking, my fellow lords. Hey, what's up, TiVo? And what's up, H&H? The first character we're going to talk, you don't want to start with yours first?
Yeah.
Let's do yours first, because yours technically came out first.
Yep, you did.
The first character is a character called Jakara. He was introduced in Volume 1 of Black Panther. What issue is that?
Number 6.
Is that his first appearance
in this book?
Yeah.
Written by the late great King Jack King Kirby, who could not write to save his life. God love him. God rest his soul. Because his stories were kind of trash. But he, along with Stan Lee, created the character of T'Challa, created the whole mythos of Wakanda. And in this issue, which is issue number 6, T'Challa has a half-brother. Everybody knows the mythos of T'Challa. He is the son of the king T'Chaka, who was killed by Ulysses Claw, who was, I guess, Dutch or something. He was a Dutch mercenary, whatever the case may be. But in Volume 1, T'Challa had a half-brother who was the son of the second wife of T'Chaka, and his name is Jakara. And he's kind of like
was he a son of the? Was he a wife, or was it just like a concubine?
No, wife. No, not a mistress, not a concubine. According to the source material that I
Yeah.
just read today, he was the second wife. Jakara's mother was the second wife of T'Challa. If I'm not mistaken, T'Challa's mother died.
T'Chaka.
Yes, I apologize. T'Chaka's first wife, died, depending on what mythos or what storyline you want to follow. But T'Chaka's first wife, who was T'Challa's mother, died. Then T'Chaka married another woman whose name isn't given and gave birth to Jakara. Now, Jakara wasn't raised in Wakanda. He was sent off to Europe to military school across Europe or whatever the case may be, because Jakar felt, because he was somewhat diminutive. He didn't feel he was tiny guy. He has a Napoleonic complex because he was a very small dude, and then he was shipped off. While T'Challa, the first son, was basically raised in the loving bosom of Wakanda and his family.
Because Jakara was a wee man. He was a wee man.
Don't do that. Don't do that. So in this book, he makes his appearance, and as we know, T'Challa has been a member of the Avengers, and most of his time as king has been spent outside of Wakanda. He's been spending his time in America fighting all kinds of threats with the Avengers. While he has been gone, there has been a regent by the name of Ngasi. He's an older Wakandan gentleman who basically runs Wakanda in T'Challa's absence. And so while T'Challa's off doing whatever he's doing, the second son comes back and tries to take over Wakanda while T'Challa is gone. And when he does, he puts himself in the vibranium. He grabs like some vibranium and absorbs it. And he basically becomes a monster. Do you have a picture of it? Yeah, that's him. Very tiny dude, Napoleonic complex, has some issues, daddy issues, felt abandoned, felt betrayed, jealous of his brother, and wants to take over. And so he absorbs some energy from some vibranium and becomes this monster and goes on a rampage in issues 6 through 10. And that was the B storyline, because in those books there are two storylines. T'Challa is off fighting the Collectors, who are a group of individuals who collect all kinds of rare artifacts, and he's trying to make his way back home. T'Challa is. And the B second storyline is Jakara taking over Wakanda, and that's what this story is about. So,
what was the issue that he became that
creature? I want to say it's probably issue number either 6 or 7.
Let me see if I can pull that up.
Yeah. In fact, he looks like, the way that Kirby drew him, he looks like one of the deviants who make their appearance in the Eternals. I don't remember the deviant's name. I want to say maybe Crow, Kro. I could be wrong on that, but those two characters look remarkably similar. So, because, Kirby had a particular style and he had a particular way that he drew characters, and they look a lot alike.
This is from issue 10.
Mm-hmm.
So he basically absorbs, he goes into the vibranium mound, is thrown into the vibranium mound, and vibranium.
Hold on, real quick, sorry to interrupt. He doesn't really go into the mound. He has some vibranium brought to him, and he's sitting in front of Ngasi with a big hunk of vibranium, touches it, absorbs it, and that's how he gets
right.
This
What's vibranium's a really interesting substance, and I'm glad that they're really starting to explore all the properties of vibranium. If you've read the most recent issues of this new book called Wakanda, right?
Which was actually pretty good, actually.
Very good. You're really starting to understand that they're doing some world building on the substance of vibranium. The fact that not only is it this metal that conducts energy and absorbs it and allows you to redirect it, and is the technology for Wakanda. When you think about it, the heart-shaped herb came from vibranium, right? It mutated the plants around the mound and made that heart-shaped herb, which gives the Black Panther his powers. It also mutated animal life. We know from the Jungle Action run done by the great Don McGregor that it mutated animals around Wakanda. It's probably also responsible for the fact that Wakanda has its own savage land area where dinosaurs still exist. T'Challa actually, in his storyline done by Jonathan Hickman and then continued with Ta-Nehisi Coates, wanted to explore the origins of vibranium. His mother, his real mother, not Ramonda, his birth mother, Naomi, was a explorer, an astrologer, astrophysicist, or what have you. And one of her passions was trying to explore the origins of vibranium out in space. So T'Challa wanted to honor his mother when he had the opportunity, and sent out a delegation of astronauts, Wakanda's smartest individuals, and sent them out into space during Jonathan Hickman's run. I mean, the reason this is significant, that storyline started in, what's it called? Geez, why am I drawing a blank right now? No. They're making a movie about it. Secret Wars, right? In Secret Wars #9 in 2015, T'Challa ends up sending these astronauts out in space to go find the vibranium. These astronauts ultimately go into a wormhole, go back in time like 20,000 years, what have you, and founded the intergalactic empire of Wakanda deep in space. But they did find the origin world of vibranium. It's part of their empire now. And there's also a storyline during The King in Black where it's kind of touched upon that Null has some type of involvement with that planet as well, where vibranium is from. We also know that vibranium is the one substance that is like kryptonite to that, the ultimate guy. The guy's like Marvel's equivalent of Superman. What's his name?
Sentry,
No.
Hyperion.
Hyperion. That storyline they had last year, the crossover story. We found out that Hyperion's kryptonite is vibranium. So that's interesting. So they're really starting to explore the origins of vibranium. I just wanted to mention that because I thought that was an interesting sort of thing, because we have this Wakanda Forever movie coming out, and I think one of the ties that the Atlantean people, the Talokan, have is also they know about vibranium, use vibranium. So it'd be interesting to see how they explore that in the future.
But bringing it back to what we were talking about as far as Jakara, a lot of times in comic books, they will have a thread or a storyline, but what they will do is what's called retcon. They will change certain things to go forward, because understand,
I agree, Azzo.
These books have been going on. A lot of these books have been going on for decades, and there are certain points where they will deviate from how it started and change things a little bit. So, for example, the original Volume 1, which is actually kind of the second storyline of T'Challa, because he made his first appearance in Fantastic Four. Then he had a whole storyline in Jungle Action, but he got his first independent volume in Volume 1. But in actuality, it was his second volume, because it was the second time that his storyline was being told. But as was said, in that Volume 1, T'Challa's father, had a second wife who gave birth to Jakara. Fast forward to the Priest run, which was Volume 4. His second wife gave birth was Ramonda, who is Shuri's mother. Okay? So
that makes her the third wife.
Right. But I believe it didn't say that it was the third wife. It was just his second wife. So this character, the brother Jakara, has kind of just been ignored and dissipated for all these years, decades. So Paul's theory is that conceivably it could be Jakara instead of the White Wolf who's behind all the troubles that T'Challa has been facing in the horrible Ridley Scott run, John Ridley run that's going on right now. Because that's a character who we haven't really seen in all this time.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The second character that we wanted to talk about was a character who was actually introduced in Volume 4 of Black Panther, done by Reginald Hudlin, in issue number 2, the same issue that Shuri was introduced as a character. Let's bring that up. If you don't have this issue, you should get it. It's not cheap, but I would wait until after Wakanda Forever airs. It should go down in price a little bit. So this is Volume 4, Number 2, the introduction of Shuri. In this issue, they show how T'Challa ultimately defeated his uncle Cian, who took over as the regent of Wakanda after T'Challa's father, was killed by Claw.
For those who don't know,
Cian was the Black Panther.
Right. T'Challa, we know, was the king. But when T'Challa's father, died, T'Challa was a young... What's up, James? T'Challa was a young kid. You know, he was between the ages of 10 and 14. He was in no position whatsoever to take over as Black Panther and ruler of a whole nation. So T'Chaka's younger brother, Cian, took over and was the Black Panther. And Cian has a son who is T'Challa's cousin. And his name is...
Tashawn.
Yep.
Tashawn.
And Tashawn, the great Reginald Hudlin run of Black Panther was turned into an animated cartoon on BET.
Yeah.
It was a 12-issue animated cartoon that you can find on YouTube. And in episode one of that series, you are introduced to both Shuri and Cian, as well as Tashawn. So when you have the time, just put in Black Panther cartoon in YouTube, and you will find the 12 episodes right there for you. That gives you an idea of the history of the character.
Yeah, I mean that cartoon was excellent. It's basically a motion comic.
Yeah,
that's where they took panels from the actual comic book and simply animated them. It is almost a page by page recreation of the first 12 issues of the Black Panther comic book from Volume 4.
If you know anything about cartoons from like the 60s and 70s, you know they had Hulk cartoon, Captain America, Thor, and Namor. They had Namor cartoons back in like 19.
And Iron Man.
Yeah,
and
they
Spider-Man.
weren't animated in the manner in which cartoons are animated now, where each individual movement is fluid. It's almost kind of like puppets to a certain degree. And that's what Paul means by stop action when it comes to the BET 12 episode series. So that's what it's like. But it's still good.
It's an excellent series.
T'Challa is voiced by Djimon Hounsou, who would have been 30 years ago a great live action T'Challa. But he was wasted in the MCU because they had him in Guardians of the Galaxy, and he's over there in DC as the Wizard Shazam. That's the one thing that I'll say about Marvel Studios is that, to me, they miscast and or waste Black actors. Because what's my man's name who played Mr. Echo? I can never get his name right.
Jeez, I don't remember. I don't
Starts
remember
with
the
an
brother's name.
A. If you can pull him up, but he was. If you saw him in the '90s, my first exposure to him was in 1995 in the movie Congo. Whatever this brother's name is, again, he played Mr. Echo in the series Lost. He was a slave trader in Game of Thrones in 1 or 2 episodes. He would have been a perfect T'Challa back in the late 90s, early 2000s. But in the MCU, he was wasted as the character Curse in Thor #2. Then when he left Thor #2, he ended up in Suicide Squad #1 as the Crocodile. And so you never saw his face because he was always covered up by make. There we go. Adewale Akinwumi Agbaje. Forgive me, forgive my pronunciation, but that's his name. If you possibly pull a picture of him up so people know who he is. But also with Jaimin Hansu, you don't get a chance to see his full acting range because he had a very brief appearance in Guardians of the Galaxy as one of this, I don't even know who he was a member of. He wasn't a member of the Kree or whatever. He was just some dude.
He was like one of the thugs.
Right. He should have been a member of Wakanda. And, the MCU has done a very bad job when it comes to black actors outside of Samuel Jackson and what's my man's name who plays Captain America now? Falcon. What's his name?
Black Falcon?
What's his name? The actor's name?
I don't know.
Seriously, what's his name? Jeez. Anthony Mackie. Jeez, that was gonna kill me. Anthony Mackie.
I wasn't going to tell you, dude.
outside of Anthony Mackie and the great Samuel L. Jackson, who also went to Morehouse College, the MCU has just basically wasted black actors and actresses. Thank you, Joanne. Yes, Anthony Mackie. So,
all right. So, get us back on track. So, in this issue, Volume 1, Number 2, everyone buys this book because it's the first appearance of Shuri. It's also the first appearance of her cousin Tashan, who's the son of Cian, the Black Panther who was regent after T'Chaka died. Tashan was very jealous of T'Challa. T'Challa obviously being the son of T'Chaka, the fact that his father, when he became Black Panther, wasn't named king. I didn't really realize that until I was rereading this issue to prepare for tonight. Cian wasn't technically a king. He was Black Panther, but he was not king. He was named regent of Wakanda. That's because T'Challa was still alive.
And he was going to end up taking over.
And he would have the opportunity to become king when he reached of age. But Cian, as Black Panther, was still subject to the challenge each and every year, in which they don't have elections in Wakanda. They're a warrior society, so you would have a challenge to the Black Panther to take over Wakanda and become the new Black Panther.
If you're from a royal, depending on which volume you read, sometimes and they did this in Black Panther 1, if you were from a royal house, you had the opportunity to challenge to be Black Panther. And sometimes it's like any Wakandan can challenge the role, could challenge to be the Black Panther. So it just depends on which one.
Yeah, depending on which volume. They also say that if you're not part of the royal lineage in whatever way, ingesting the heart-shaped herb would kill you.
Right.
So there's that too.
That's another thing. Ryan Coogler created the whole stripping the strength of the Black Panther away for the movie. In the comics, that's not a thing. When you challenge the Black Panther, you are facing the Black Panther in his full might. That means his increased strength, his speed, his senses. He has his full cadre of powers and abilities. So that's what makes T'Challa's challenge of his uncle so impressive. because T'Challa had not yet ingested the heart-shaped herb and took on his uncle and defeated him while he was at his full powers. Now, true enough, he was an older gentleman who had just gone through a gauntlet of fights, but still, as the Black Panther, he was still stronger, faster, all this other stuff, and T'Challa took him down to then become the ruler and the new mantle wielder of the Black Panther.
Yeah. So Tashan fights his father, loses. Shuri's about to jump into the arena to fight her uncle to become the next Black Panther. Now, this is the original Shuri. This isn't the Shuri that we have in the films or the retcon Shuri that we have in the comics now. Shuri back then was a hothead who was a warrior. Her brother was the egg-headed scientist, brooding guy. But the younger Shuri was a hot-headed, ready to, with a chip on her shoulder, wanting to be fighting everybody all the time.
Who had trained to be a warrior, unlike what it appears the Shuri was in the movie Black Panther 1.
Right.
She was a tech head in Black Panther 1. She was not a warrior.
It was interesting. When she ultimately even became the Black Panther, she said in one of her earliest issues in her run, which is in Volume 5, my brother's the scientist in the family. I'm a warrior. That was her own words. But that, of course, has been since retconned. Anyway, long story short, Tashan, after T'Challa becomes Black Panther, T'Challa smartly brings Tashan into the fold, brings him into the royal circle by making him Wakanda's ambassador to the UN. And there he's asked, well, why would you give him such a position of power when you know that he's got a lot of heat towards you? He's very jealous and he wants the throne. He's like, and T'Challa's like, well, you want to keep your friends close and your enemies closer. This way I can keep an eye on him by having him so close. Tashan ultimately comes under the influence of this parasite character. Let me show you what I'm talking about. He's on a mission as part of his duties as the ambassador to Wakanda. And he's flying this woman back who is the wife of the radioactive man who's invading Wakanda under Claw.
The radioactive man is a character, I want to say he was Chinese.
No, he was Russian.
He was Russian. And basically he was a guy who was literally radioactive. Right.
So he's flying this woman back to Wakanda so that here's the radioactive man. He's fighting Shuri. And Tashan is flying this woman back who's his wife, try and, I guess, subdue him, calm him down, what have you. Tragedy strikes because T'Challa's attacking Claw. Claw fires his weapon up into the air. It strikes the airplane that Tashan is flying on. The plane crashes. Now, as the plane is crashed, he's going over to the woman, and she kisses him. But it's not really a woman. I mean, she's a woman, but she's got a entity that can jump from body to body.
Parasite.
Yeah, basically a parasite.
If you've seen the movie Fallen with Denzel Washington and John Goodman, there was a bad guy who could jump from body to body. And basically, that's what this creature does. It can inhabit any body, and it jumps due to physical touch. So This chick, I can't remember how he got into her, but it did.
Claw recruited him, and he insisted that this parasite guy insisted that he take him to a brothel in Washington, D.C.
Right.
And they found this girl in the brothel, and he infected her.
Right. But, what you just said was that the woman was the wife of Radioactive Man. So,
right.
Was Radioactive Man's wife working in a brothel or?
Yes, apparently so.
And so pretty much this was the end of this character in comic books. Like, I don't recall him being in anything after this.
Aha. One would think, right? So At this point, he's infected, the ambassador to Wakanda. The next time we see him, next major time that we see him, is in the most significant book that let me pull this up. One of the other books that's considered a must-have. One second. This is what happens when I don't have Dr. Wizard to do this stuff for me. This is Black Panther number 18, volume 4. Let me tell you something, people. If you consider yourself a Black Panther fan, a Black Panther comic book collector, or just a collector of books that have black characters in it, as many of us black comic lords are, this is a must-have. I don't even care if you're not even a Black Panther fan. As a black comic book character collector, you have to own this issue. This issue is so chock full of Marvel black superheroes. It's astonishing.
Shout out to Reggie Hudlin.
Shout out to Reggie Hudlin, who did that with purpose and intent. Not only did he put just about every black superhero you can think of, the major ones, in this book, even a couple minor ones like Triathlon. He had a moment where he got to honor Isaiah Bradley in this book.
Isaiah Bradley, for those who don't know, was the second Captain America. Steve Rogers, as we all know, had the super soldier serum put in him. The guy who created Erskine, whatever his name was killed. So the United States government tried to recreate the super soldier serum. And what do? You experiment on people who you think are expendable. So the United States government experimented on a bunch of black soldiers. Isaiah Bradley is the only one who was able to survive. That story was told in the book, the 5-issue book, Truth, Red, White, and Black, I think it was, or what was it called?
Red, White, and Black, yeah.
Red, White, and Black. So Isaiah Bradley, who made his appearance in Captain America and the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, that character was introduced in that 5-issue limited series called Truth. If you do not have Truth, I would highly encourage you to try to pick it up. So after that 5-issue series, you don't see Isaiah Bradley pretty much again until this issue of Black Panther by Reginald Hudlin.
Yeah, let me pull this up. Oh, crud. It's always when you start the show that you now can't find the stuff that you're looking for, and it's very frustrating.
Yeah. Truth, Red, White, and Black dropped in 2003. And this Black Panther issue dropped around 2012 or so. I'm about to send it to you. So add that to your collection list if you are in fact a collector, because this is very important. Just check the DM, Paul. I just sent it to you. And it's called Truth, Red, White, and Black.
Yeah, if you watch the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, you have an idea who Isaiah Bradley is.
And in fact, Isaiah Bradley's grandson is probably going to be a member of the Young Avengers as a character named Patriot. Do they ever introduce his father at all? Isaiah Bradley?
That's in the crew. Josiah X.
Okay. So basically, because Isaiah Bradley had that serum in his body, his grandson was genetically enhanced because through his lineage, through his grandfather.
All right, so let me pull this up. This is the interior of what I'm talking about here. Sorry it took me so long, guys. I had to scroll through everything.
And while
So
Paul,
they're at this party. Obviously, this is the reception for the wedding. You've got all the Marvel heroes are in here, all the Avengers, the Fantastic Four, the X-Men. Everybody's at this party, at this
real quick,
reception for the party.
before you go further, at this time, over in Marvel in the United States, the Civil War battle was going on, where basically the government, was trying to register anybody who had any type of superpowers or super abilities. Captain America was on the side of freedom and not trying to register. Tony Stark was the face of the government. So those two sides were battling against registering or not registering. But T'Challa of Wakanda married Aurora Monroe, aka Storm of the X-Men, in Wakanda, which was not part of the whole Civil War battle. It's a whole nother country. So their battle didn't matter to them. They're like Switzerland. And so all of these heroes came to Wakanda, even though they had beef with each other over here in the United States. So that's the background or backdrop for this storyline.
So at this party, you've got all these superheroes. Among them is Brother Voodoo and Doctor Strange. And both of them can sense that this dude, Tashan, who's walking around the wedding, is a little weird. They sense some type of mystical energy on him and try to get him. Tashan's idea is that he's going to basically assassinate T'Challa at his own wedding. So this is the last you kind of see of this dude. You see him skulking about in the background there. Let me zoom in a bit. They're like, yeah, that man over there, he is more than he appears to be. I've been spotted by the Mystics. I've got to get out of here. This is the last you see of this dude. That's the last you see of him. There's a mention that in Marvel Wiki or something, that at some point when Wakanda was at war with Atlantis, Atlantis ultimately destroyed the Wakandan embassy, of which he was the ambassador. So it's assumed he was killed, but it was never confirmed and it wasn't stated outright. And he's disappeared ever since. This guy is a Wakandan royal, cousin to T'Challa, candidate to become Black Panther. If he takes the heart-shaped herb, he'll have the same powers as T'Challa. And as a former UN ambassador, is very familiar with Wakanda's security measures. So I think he's another viable candidate to be the big bad behind everything in the current Black Panther storyline.
But here's a question that I have, because I don't remember, because these books came out in 2006. So yeah. I haven't read these issues in 16 years when they first came out. But once the parasitic creature leaves a body, does it kill the host? I don't recall.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
I know it definitely incapacitates them, but I don't know if they're dead per se.
Right. So, we've been talking about recent history and part of the royal family, because what people know now is Queen Ramonda, T'Challa, and Shuri, because a lot of folks aren't comic book readers. They just go by what's in the movies. And Paul and I have just spent the past 30, 45 minutes talking about T'Challa's uncle and cousin. But going back all the way to the 70s to Volume 1, T'Challa had a whole other group of individuals who were family members. We just mentioned his other brother, Jakara, but he had a group of individuals. Okay, so when Jakara was infected with the vibranium, it was running roughshod over Wakanda. Ngasi, who was the regent, taking over for T'Challa while he's off with the Avengers in America, Ngasi called up T'Challa's other relatives. So he's got a whole other group of cousins who we never hear about outside of Volume 1 of Black Panther. You've got a dude who's a doctor. You've got a female. I don't really remember what she does. And then there are two other dudes, one of whom is a banker, an older guy, and a younger gentleman.
Who's a race car driver.
Race car driver. The four of them together came together basically to defeat Jakari, and they call themselves
the Four Musketeers. The Black Musketeers.
Yep. And outside of this, you never hear of these characters ever again. The one on top is the dude who's the doctor right here. This dude right here is the young man who's the most viable candidate to be an actual Black Panther because he's physically fit, young, and strong. This dude right here is somewhat of a middle-aged guy who's a banker. And this is a woman, and for the life of me, I can't tell you what it is that she does. But they made their appearance in issue number 8 of Black Panther Volume 1. Once we got through with this storyline, we never see them again. So there's a whole group of family members that T'Challa could have that we don't know about, you know? And it's unfortunate that the folks who helm the Black Panther movie for Marvel Studios don't really delve into those other characters. Again, maybe because they've been erased due to the retconning of the character or whatever. But it's interesting to delve into that world of who else could potentially be a Black Panther in the whole royal line of Wakandans. So that's at least 6 other individuals when you consider his uncle, his cousin, and these 4 folks right here. Wakanda needs its own TV series. As Wakanda, yes. Speaking of its own TV series, I have been advocating for several months now that Isaiah Bradley should have his own TV series going back to when he had the super soldier serum put into him, because he was in the Korean War. So I would very much like to see him going up against Bucky, because in the Falcon and the Winter Soldier series, they have history. So I would very much like to see what Isaiah Bradley went through. And one of my fan casts for a young Isaiah Bradley is the great Nate Parker. That's who I would like to see as the character. So that's,
yeah, I think they'll touch upon that when they have the next season of Captain America 4, or maybe they'll do another season of Falcon and Winter Soldier.
You have more faith than I do. I see how Marvel has done Black characters. I don't have faith that they will do that. I don't know what you're basing that on. I don't think they will.
I based it on the fact that Malcolm Spellman is the showrunner for Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and he managed to do the Red, White, and Black storyline, which is a storyline that I never thought in a million years Marvel would ever approve, and they did. So I never say never anymore. They made a raccoon a international superstar. Marvel can do anything they choose to do.
That's the key word, choose. Okay? They could have chose to keep T'Challa alive, but they made the decision not to.
They could have chosen not to put T'Challa in the movie, and they did. They could have chosen not to do
story, but I don't have faith that they would. Personally, I think that would make a great limited series. I mean, you got Moon Knight, you had all these Disney Plus series. I would love to see a 6-episode arc of Isaiah Bradley as a young dude. I'm sure I'm not the only one.
Well, we'll see. So at this point, we're going to take a short break. And when we be back, we'll talk about our reads of the week. What am I doing?
The Stranger comic catalog is very extensive. Let's say I'm introducing a kid to your stuff.
Sure. Okay.
Where do I tell him to start, or where do I tell her to start?
It's a great question. It depends on the age. I would say we have this book right here. This is the most famous one, I guess, that we have, the Niobe Shears Life comic. So this is a very all ages friendly book. And this is kind of like a Beauty and the Beast love story, threaded with murder mystery that leads to war. But it's also really about a young girl returning to her ancestors to try and find her faith. So it's very bright, very fresh, and very hopeful. I had the honor of co-writing this with an actress named Amanda Stenberg, who was probably most famous for playing Rue in the Hunger Games and going on to do The Hate You Give. And I think she's going to be the star of a new Star Wars franchise, The Acolyte. But what we did with Ashley A. Woods doing the art, it became the first nationally distributed comic book with a Black female author, artist, and hero in the history of entertainment. So we didn't realize at the time, but we were creating a bit of history, which was crazy to think, and kind of sad and bonkers. So we had a bit of a dream team though on the project, and then for video game fans of The Last of Us, the lead designer did that cover for us. So we were just experimenting and exploring. So that's an all ages friendly one that I would say anyone can read that.
Okay.
But if you're grown and you don't mind something a little bit more grown folksy, HBO-y, this is the first book that I wrote. It's called The Untamed.
Yes.
And The Untamed is a story about a man who's stuck in purgatory. And after 10 years, the devil comes along and he says, I'll give you 7 days to reap the 7 souls that murdered you and your family. The guy says, well, sign me up. And he returns to a one-horse town in a huge world. And as his memory comes back in broken shards, he realizes when he was alive, he was a bad man and maybe he deserved to die. But now he's on a path to save his family. On his path of vengeance, he meets a little elven girl called Niobe. And she reminds him of how old his murdered daughter would have been, giving this man a second chance to be a good man or a father, but he only has the 7 days. The kicker, what if she's one of the 7 souls he has to collect? And the devil set the whole thing up just to find. So this becomes a story of would you damn your family to save the world? Because if Niobe can stay alive in The Untamed, she will grow up to become our world's Messiah.
You can check out this video and others on our YouTube channel, Black Comic Lords at YouTube. So, by the way, while you're there, I'd like you all to hit that little like button at the bottom of your screen. If you like these videos, if you like what we're doing here at Black Comic Lords, help us out. Hit like, hit subscribe to our YouTube channel if you're watching us on YouTube. And it helps us to keep doing what we're doing. Really appreciate it. It costs you nothing to do that.
Free
so now we're on to reads of the week. What you got, man?
Well, reads that I ain't read that are Black centric are Nita Hawes' Nightmare Blog.
Yeah.
Right here, which is a very, very good book. It is a companion book to the Philadelphia series of books by Rodney Barnes. Very, very, very good read. Prior to the past 2 years, I was only about superhero comic books, but Paul put me on to a couple of horror books like Philadelphia. And so there are other things like Vineyard by Brian Hawkins, who is one of our friends of this channel. There's another one called Maw, M-A-W, and several others that are out there that are not superhero related. And this and Philadelphia are 2 of the books that I read that are not superhero related that are very, very good stories. Rodney Barnes has created a very interesting world that involves the supernatural, specifically vampires, demons, ghouls, werewolves, things of that nature. If you're not reading Nita Hall's Nightmare blog, I highly encourage you to do so. It's illustrated by the great Sean Alexander. This dude's artwork is phenomenal. This brother can draw. He's a good follow on Twitter if you have it. Another book that I'm reading is Defenders Beyond. The main reason why I'm reading this is because Blue Marvel is the leader of a group of defenders who are out there trying to save reality. Blue Marvel was first introduced and created by the great Kevin Grievous, who is my fraternity brother, member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. He had a 5-issue series that is extremely hard to find at this point. The book probably goes for several $100s if you find volume 1, issue 1. I bought it in a dollar bin, about 15 years ago. I'm sure Paul did as well. I didn't get it when it was first on the newsstands, but I was able to find it in dollar bins. That character, Blue Marvel, is a black dude who is powered by antimatter, who is one of the strongest earthbound heroes. Brother, brilliant. I believe that he is going to be in live action in the Marvels. He's probably going to be played by Shamir Anderson. That's the name that I've been told that his character is going to be. Shamir Anderson I just found out about a month or so ago, is the brother of Stephen James. Stephen James is one of my fan casts to play T'Challa. Shamir Anderson, you may have seen in the movie Race, which starred Stephen James. He was also in the series Invasion. He was in the movie with Halle Berry, where she was an MMA fighter. He was the promoter, so that's who he is. They are Canadians, but he's a very, very good actor. Blue Marvel is the leader of this crew, so that's why I'm reading this book. Not great, not horrible, it's decent, so that's why I continue to read this. My final pick is Eve. Now, Eve was a 6-issue limited series that was set in a dystopian world where basically the planet Earth the planet had not been destroyed. Humans' ability to live on the Earth had been destroyed. And it started off very, very good, but the last 2 issues sucked. They were just bad. The way the story ended was just bad. But this is volume 2. So I figured I'd give it another shot. I haven't read it yet, but that's what I got.
All right. That's all 3 of them?
Yeah, just those 3.
All right. I'm going to, let me just share my screen here. Here's our Black Comic Lords League of Comic Geeks page. And here's our picks that we picked for this past week. As an honorable mention, so to speak, this book, Aliens, if you're a fan of the Aliens franchise, Volume 1 and Volume 2, this is the second volume, this is the second issue of Volume 2. Excellent, excellent book. I think this is like one of the most slept on books. No one's talking about it. If you're an Aliens fan, you should be reading this book because this is literally a movie in comic book form. Engaging story, lots of action, lots of suspense, just like you saw in the movies. Really, really good book. And the second volume has one of the black lead characters in this story. Black Adam, written by Christopher Priest. I'm enjoying the book.
Let me talk about that book when you get done. I want to talk about Black Adam.
This character who is the ancestor to Teth Adam, Theo Adam, Malik White, is a young doctor who Teth Adam has found as his ancestor and has imbued him, descendant, and has imbued him with the power of Shazam. In this issue, he initially was going to call him White Adam, and he's like, that ain't gonna work, dude. I'm a brother. But in this issue, he's finally picked out a new name, which is Bolt. I don't know if that's necessarily that much of an improvement, but that's what they're running with. You see him finally sort of use his powers and starting to understand that he has powers and appreciates them. So that's just another step in the journey of this character. Now, we talked earlier about Captain America: Symbol of Truth. This is an okay issue. The artwork is excellent, written by Toya Achibuchi. I know I'm butchering the guy's name. Good writing. Storyline investigating the Wakanda thing. That's kind of wrapping up a little bit. The most important part of this book, because this is the Wakanda Whiskey and Blerddom show, and we always like to focus on Black Panther, is the last page. We already know from this storyline that White Wolf is involved with this terrorist group that's gathering weapons and gathering vibranium. But what's interesting, Marc mentioned this earlier when he was going over the origin of White Wolf, that White Wolf was his baby who was found in Wakanda. His parents crashed from an airplane or whatever the storyline is, Tarzan type thing. And his allegiance has always been diehard Wakandan because that's where he was raised, even though that's not where he was born. But is that truly where his allegiance lies? The last page of this book makes you question that. It was a huge revelation, and as a result, this is one of the picks of the week. Low key, this is a minor key in my opinion, as a result, because he declares a new allegiance that you previously did not know about. So, Captain America: Symbol of Truth, issue number 6. Various covers there. Also, another minor issue with regard to that. The Falcon's sidekick, so to speak, Red Wing, has been around for decades as his partner since his very inception. This is Red Wing's first solo cover. Minor key for spec people. It's not a big spec. It's not a real spec. But I think it's of note that Red Wing finally got his own cover by himself after all these years as a Marvel character. He deserves it. Marc already talked about Defenders Beyond and Eve. If you're getting Defenders Beyond because of Blue Marvel, you need to also get Thunderbolts with Captain, I keep calling her Captain Marvel, Monica Rambeau, Photon, aka Spectrum, because I consider that a companion book to this book. There is almost a crossover, so to speak, in the Thunderbolt storyline as to what's going on in Defenders. They talk about the books interchangeably. I Am Batman, number 14. As we mentioned before, John Ridley's run on Black Panther is terrible, but he is a good writer, as evidenced by this book, I Am Batman. He's doing a fantastic job. This is one of my favorite DC books to read every single month. I love this particular cover. There's another cover here. There's a couple other covers here and here. They're great. They're good. They're great. However, this cover has Jace Fox's sister, Tiffany, who's going to become ultimately his sidekick superhero partner. And that's the first time you sort of see her, quote unquote, in costume. So that's a dope cover. Great issue. I love this book. Fantastic run by John Ridley. Another low-key, off-the-radar book, Iron Man 24. This issue has Riri Williams in it. I'm not going to say how she comes up or what have you, but Riri Williams is exposed to a significant power that may have repercussions for her future. Tony Stark is very hesitant about her retaining this power, but ultimately she leaves the issue with this power and big question marks as to what's going to happen to Riri Williams, aka Ironheart, in the future as a result of this power-up, so to speak. You can't tell all that happens by looking at this cover. That's why I'm telling you about it. Depending on where they go with Ironheart, who has a new series coming out in 2023, this might be a significant changing point in her life. That's Iron Man number 24. Finally, last issue I'll mention, Moon Knight number 16. Great run by Jed McKay. I'm not even a Moon Knight fan, but I'm a fan of this run. It's been very well written. Art is okay. I think there's a bunch of artists that I probably would have preferred on this run, but it's okay. It's serviceable. But the writing is outstanding. Also introduced a Egyptian character by the name of Badur, who is the Hunter's Moon. I'm gonna claim he's black. Black Fist of Khonshu. And he goes to the ringer in this issue. And you see him fight against a whole slew of vampires in very Blade-like fashion, which actually led to an article by Screen Rant, who indicated that Blade has a competitor in the vampire slaying business. And they actually declared that Hunter's Moon is a better vampire slayer than Blade, as evidenced by this issue. So those are my reads of the week.
Let's go back to Black Adam. If you can pull that back up.
Go ahead and speak while I bring it up.
Yeah. Black Adam is written by the great Christopher Priest, who had the volume 3 of Black Panther, volume 3, volume 4, volume 3 of Black Panther. He's the one who created the Dora Milaje. He's the one who created Shuri. Christopher Priest is a legend in the comic book writing world.
I feel a butt coming.
However, I can't say that I am a fan of his writing on this book because, like John Ridley over on Black Panther, I don't feel that Christopher Priest really understands the character of Teth Adam, aka Black Adam. The way that Priest writes him is not the way the quote-unquote character actually is. I first became...
What has been represented in the past, you mean?
Correct. The way I became really familiar with Black Adam was during the New 52 or the 52 storyline, where there was a new issue every week that was numbered. It was numbered 1 through 52. So a new issue came out every week. And Teth Adam in that series was the ruler of Kandak. Unfortunately, he was married, had an adopted son, was living the life of luxury. His family was killed off, and Teth Adam, Black Adam, went on a complete and total rampage. Black Adam, who has, these very, very... He has a very strong power set that is equivalent and equal to Shazam. Black Adam took on pretty much every earthbound hero and destroyed them. I mean, this dude went through everybody. Understand, Black Adam doesn't need food. He doesn't need water. He doesn't need sleep. He is a complete and total powerhouse. And I believe firmly that if he really wanted to, he could destroy Superman if he put his mind to it, okay? That's how strong the character is. But outside of that, the way he presents himself, understand, this dude is 5,000 plus years old. He is used to being a monarch. He is a ruler. The way that he has been written for decades has been of that mindset. Even though you may not like the fact that he kills people who are his enemies, he is a very noble individual. The way that Christopher Priest has been writing him makes him seem more modern than the ancient individual that he actually is. So I'm gonna be honest with you, I have not been a fan of this version of Black Adam. I just don't like the way that Christopher Priest has been writing him, just like I don't like the way Ridley writes T'Challa. It seems to me that those two writers, who are great, don't understand the characters that they've been giving in the history that has been presented for decades prior to them getting hold to these properties. So that's my 2 cents on it. But if you like Black Adam as overall as a character, there was a 4-issue limited series called World War III, and this is when Black Adam took on the entirety of the Earthbound DC heroes and just absolutely annihilated them. I mean, this dude is something else. And then there was also a 4-issue series that came up after that called Black Adam Volume 1, which is a 5-issue limited series. No, I'm sorry. That's the one that's going on right now. There was another one that came out. Okay, yeah. There's another one that came out in 2007 called Black Adam: The Dark Age, and it came out after World War III, and it showed you what happened to him. There was a point in time when he lost the ability to turn into his superpowered form, and Black Adam: The Dark Age was very good. It's a 6-issue limited series. So if you are interested in the character, highly encourage you to pick up those 2 volumes, the Black Adam: The Dark Age and Black Adam, World War III, which is 4 issues. So that's 10 issues that you should really, really pick up if you're interested in the character. But speaking of the character, the movie dropped last week that starred University of Miami alum Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. I saw it. Paul saw it. I loved it. I thought it was a very good movie. What did you think of it?
Well, hold on. Before we get to that, let's take this opportunity to make another commercial break.
Have you ever wanted to read a story with a poetic musical twist? Batman Jazz is that John. Written by Gerard Jones and illustrated by Marc Badger, the story is about a legendary jazz musician and his desire to play jazz when and where he wants to. There are lots of twists and turns in this story, but suffice to say that Bluebird, who the story is about, shares more than his love for jazz, but he makes a point to teach Batman a thing or two. It's a great story. It's gritty, it's poetic, it's reflective. It's aptly titled Batman Jazz. It's a 3-issue mini. I'm sure you will enjoy it. It'll be a welcome addition to your collection. And please, if you like this video, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and thank you for listening. Peace.
Well, again, if you enjoy the content that you see on the show, please hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and help us keep doing what we're doing. So you want to talk about
Black Adam the movie dropped last week.
Black Adam the movie.
It was an extremely enjoyable for me. It was an extremely enjoyable experience. I really enjoyed it. On a scale of 1 to 10, I gave it an 8.5, especially based on the after credit scene. I think it's been well known at this point that Henry Cavill's Superman has been reintroduced into the DCEU, that's DC Extended Universe. For whatever reason, Superman has been sidelined because of the former now administration of DC.
What's his name? Hamada or something like that?
Yeah, some Japanese name, something Hamada. For whatever reason, he didn't like Henry Cavill's Superman because I guess his movies didn't make a lot of money. But that had nothing to do with Henry as an actor on that role. It had to do with writing and directing. Man of Steel sucked. It was just a bad movie. Justice League was just a bad movie. That had nothing to do with Henry's portrayal. Loved Black Adam. Loved it. I think that Aldous Hodge's Hawkman was kind of an asshole, but and Atom Smasher was kind of useless, to be honest with you. The stars of the show were
he was the comic relief though.
But was he? He was barely there. It was just he was just there. I wasn't impressed with his performance. I don't know the actor. I'm not saying he did a bad job. Just the way that the character was presented, it just really didn't make sense to me. Pierce Brosnan, Remington Steele, aka James Bond, he did a phenomenal job as Dr. Fate. But I'm familiar with Dr. Fate due to Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. And there were certain aspects of the way the character was presented that didn't jive with the real Dr. Fate. We didn't hear the voice of Naboo. Naboo is an elder god who inhabits the helm of Dr. Fate, which gives him his power. We didn't see that conflict that what's his name? Kent Nelson, I think, had to deal with right there. He was able to take the helm on and off, and the real Dr. Fate would not be able to do that. All the criticism aside, it was a very, very fun movie. Also, Aldous Hodge as Hawkman. Aldous Hodge is Hawkman. Please, for the love of God, stop fan casting him as T'Challa. There are other black actors out there, if they ever bring that character back, who can play this role other than a dude who's already in a superhero franchise. That's one of my big criticisms of civilians who watch comic book movies. Once they see one black actor in a role, they now want to see that same black actor in every black role. Aldous Hodge is Hawkman. Leave him there. Yahya Abdul-Mateen is Black Manta. Leave him there. There are a whole cadre of talented black actors who could be T'Challa, aka Black Panther, if they ever decide to bring that character back. But The Rock as Black Adam did a wonderful job. I know people criticize the fact that he didn't have any type of accent because he played a character from the Middle East, et cetera, et cetera. But physically,
that character's from Africa.
Right. Physically, he looks like him. He just did a great job, and it was fun. It was a very fun movie. Very fun movie.
I thoroughly enjoyed this film. It was a popcorn blockbuster film, superhero film. And when you walk into the movie expecting that, you're impressed. You're entertained. My tub of popcorn was done by the time the movie was done. I wasn't looking at my watch saying, when's this movie going to be over? It was action-packed. It was compelling.
It made
the story
sense.
Was easy enough to the story was easy enough to follow, and I enjoyed it. The significance of this film, for me, is having a well-done DC film. That's number one, because that doesn't happen that often.
Shazam and Wonder Woman.
Shazam, Wonder Woman. I enjoy the Suicide Squad films. I'm in the minority in that, I'm sure, but I enjoyed the Suicide Squad films. I enjoy the Peacemaker television series. I think it's very well.
Peacemaker was good. Peacemaker as a series was good.
Aquaman was not horrible as a film. It was basically Black Panther underwater, basically, in some respects.
Jason Momoa cannot act.
They have the ability to do good films, but I think the prevailing opinion is this Hamada guy was kind of interfering with their ability to make a cohesive universe, because you'd have all these separate projects that weren't attached to each other, and there is no cohesiveness like an MCU is. Because see, Marvel's Kevin Feige's brilliance is in establishing an MCU, but recognizing that not every MCU movie has to be thematically the same. You can have an intense drama filled film like Endgame that's epic in scale. You can also have a basic comedy movie like Ant-Man, or Guardians of the Galaxy. There's room for everything. Even She-Hulk, which is pure comedy. There's room for that. It has no tie really to the rest of the MCU, really, in terms of Easter eggs and stuff. Not that much.
She-Hulk sucked.
It did not. But, that's Marvel's flexibility. It's a tapestry of films, and that's its strength. DC doesn't have any of that cohesiveness, and they weren't able to do that. So that's the second point. The third point is, shout out to Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson, who's been trying to get this film done for 15 years.
Yep.
Literally. And in putting it together, established a film where the majority of the cast on the super team are black. It's never happened before in a major blockbuster film, where you have a superhero team where the majority of the team is black. That's pretty freaking cool and historic. As he phrased it, he wanted to do Black Adam because he saw the character as a kid and he saw someone that kind of reminded him of himself for whatever reason. But there's going to be other kids that see this film and see a bunch of black people on film and say, hey, that could be me. There's just not enough words to show how important that is. Mark and I, when we were kids, we didn't have stuff like that. Not to that extent.
Not at all.
I mean, I wanted to leave some room, but yeah, really not at all. So this is huge. Kids today don't have to worry about saying I can't find a superhero that looks like me at the movie theater. This movie can shatter that image, not just for DC, but for all superhero films in the future. Moreover, the biggest part for me is my biggest criticism with DC Comics and the DC universe is that they are beholden and tied to making everything related to either the holy trinity of Wonder Woman, Superman, and Batman, or in large part the Justice League. If the character is not tied to one of those legacy characters, DC doesn't want to do it. And this film, which is not tied to those characters, was highly successful, is being highly successful without being tied to the Justice League. I hope DC, who has more comic book characters than anybody, including Marvel, will recognize the potential of stepping out of the box they have locked themselves in, of having all their properties tied to the Holy Trinity or the Justice League, and pull these other characters outside of the box and put them on screen. You have thousands of characters to choose from, and they stick to the same ones that are related to this entire legacy universe. And that's a big mistake for them.
This week, it was announced that James Gunn, and I can't remember the other individual.
Nobody knows who that guy is. So
right. They're basically taking over the DC comic book universe. They are the co-dudes are going to be the Kevin Feige of DC. James Gunn is a comic book dude. He made the first Guardians of the Galaxy. He did the Suicide Squad movies. He's immersed in this world. Hopefully, he will bring specifically some of the few black characters that DC has to the big or small screen, specifically characters like Vixen.
And to that point I just made before, James Gunn made his bones in superhero films. Didn't he also do Mystery Men? I don't know. Made his bones in superhero films where those characters aren't part of the Holy Trinity and the Justice League. Those Suicide Squad films had nothing to do with them.
Right.
And he was able to take obscure characters and make them. Everyone knows who Peacemaker is now. No one knew who Peacemaker was before that movie came out.
Right.
Nobody.
As a comic book dude, I had no idea who Peacemaker was.
Right.
As a Marvel comic book guy, the Guardians of the Galaxy that James Gunn brought to the screen was not the Guardians of the Galaxy that I knew. He knows how to craft and tell a story. So I think that DC is in good hands when it comes to him. And that's what I was saying a moment ago, is that I hope he puts that focus on other unknown or B, C, D list characters and make them popular. You know,
I have to take issue
one of
with
those
something.
characters again is Vixen. You know, we see Vixen in Justice League and Justice League Unlimited, the animated series, but outside of that, you know, nobody knows who that is.
Let's talk about Azel Ray's contention he just put here. He said, unfortunately, DC doesn't have enough black characters, especially for any lead in any films. Not so fast, my friend. This is a common misconception. DC has more black characters than any comic book company alive. It is a misconception that they don't have black characters. They do. They have hundreds of them. They just don't use them. That's the difference. DC is notorious for creating a character, putting it in a couple issues, and then stuffing it on the shelf and never dusting it off ever again. They have a huge roster of black characters. They just don't use them. And that's my point about having James Gunn take over the DC universe is significant, because you have a guy who's not afraid of taking obscure characters and putting them on film and making them stars. I'm hoping that he will continue that trend and open the door to some of these more obscure black characters and put them on film. The top of the list for me is Vixen, who I think is probably one of the greatest, DC superheroes with a tremendous amount of potential.
If you really want to see Vixen, you have to watch Justice League and Justice League Unlimited. H&H Comics says that James Gunn, Bloodsport, the James Gunn news this week is big, just not sure where he takes things. Well, we just got to give him time. I mean, this was just announced, Tuesday or Wednesday of this week, so we just got to see.
Mike Carson notes they have more black characters than Marvel. They absolutely do.
And if that's the case, what's crazy is that I don't know them. I know the black characters over in Marvel more than I do DC. So hopefully James Gunn changes that. If DC can't make John Henry Irons, Black Tiger, John Stewart, Nubia, or even Cyborg in the movie franchises, it's a major fail. And
absolutely,
I'm not disagree with that.
I mean, Zack Snyder showed how Cyborg could be a compelling character. If you watch the director's cut of that Justice League movie, it's a completely different film, the director's cut. I mean, granted, it's 4 hours, but the scenes that he added with Cyborg were compelling.
I don't know if Ray Fisher, who's been basically shitting on the DC bigwigs for a while, I just don't know if I've just not been impressed with his acting, to be quite frank with you. And I don't know if they'd be willing to bring him back.
He might have burned some bridges there. Even if that Hamada guy is the guy who had the most beef with, he might have burned too many bridges. But there's a lot of guys that could play Cyborg.
Yes, Eli Goree is one of my top choices to play both Cyborg and Bronze Tiger. Yeah, so we'll see what happens over the upcoming years. So yeah, that's it. So that's about it, man. I mean, we've discussed pretty much all the good stuff. It's getting late. We've been on here an hour and a half this time. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
All right, listen, we appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for watching us. We hope that you will, if you enjoyed the film, if you enjoy what we do, please do like and like the video. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share the video. If you share it with a friend, tell them to like it. Our goal is to try to reach 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of the year. It will allow us to do a lot more things. So help a brother out. Anything else you got to add, Mark?
That's pretty much it, man. Next week I should be available, so hopefully we'll have some good books that are released this upcoming week, and hopefully we can do this again next week.
I can't do it next week because I will be in Miami for my 25-year class reunion.
Yeah, that Florida State game, we're going to get demolished, but okay, enjoy
and
it.
that too.
Yep, enjoy it.
All right.
2 weeks. 2 weeks from today.
2 weeks. See y'all later.
All right.
Peace.